he has a combination of things that we have never seen.
He kept it play by Wembanyama. Wembanyama for three. Wembanyama up top, throwing it down.
What if the most unstoppable force in basketball wasn't built in the gym with trash talk and swagger? What if the future of the sport was being shaped by a kid who spent just as much time reading fantasy novels and drawing anime characters as he did working on his crossover? Picture this: a 7'4" teenager who studies human anatomy for fun, meditates before practice, and treats basketball like a scientific experiment rather than a game. That kid just became the most hyped NBA prospect since LeBron James. His name is Victor Wembanyama, and his story proves that being different isn't a weakness, it's a superpower. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand how a quiet, introverted nerd from France rewrote the rules of what a basketball superstar looks like. From a young age, Victor Wembanyama was drawn to basketball, but not in the way you'd expect. Growing up in Le Chesnay, a suburb just outside Paris, he wasn't the loud, cocky kid dominating the playground and talking trash. He was the quiet one in the corner, the one reading books about human anatomy, the one sketching characters from his favorite anime shows. But here's what made Victor's upbringing unique. He wasn't raised by typical sports parents who just wanted their kid to be great. His family was different. His mother, Elodie de Faudereau, was a basketball coach who understood the game at a deep, technical level. His father, Felix Wembanyama, was a former track and field athlete, a long jumper and triple jumper who knew about explosive movement, body control, and the biomechanics of athletic performance. Victor's siblings were elite athletes too. His older sister Eve played basketball professionally. His younger brother Oscar is developing into a serious prospect himself. This wasn't a family that stumbled into sports. This was a family that treated athletic development like a science. From the time Victor could walk, his parents were teaching him things that other kids his age weren't learning: stretching routines, balance exercises, proper breathing techniques, meditation, body awareness. They understood that basketball isn't just about being big and strong. It's about control, coordination, and understanding how your body moves through space. But here's what nobody saw coming. Victor shot up in height incredibly early. By the time he was in his early teens, he was already well over 7 feet tall. And you know what happens to most kids who get that tall that fast? They become clumsy, uncoordinated, awkward. They trip over their own feet. They can't control their limbs. They become centers who just stand in the paint and try to dunk. Victor's parents refused to let that happen. They recognized that they had something special. A kid with incredible height, but also incredible potential for skill development. And they made a decision that would change basketball history. They were going to train him like a guard, not a center. Picture a 13-year-old who's already 7 feet tall doing dribbling drills designed for point guards, doing Eurostep footwork exercises, working on crossovers and behind-the-back moves, practicing fadeaway jumpers and step-back threes. This wasn't normal. Big men weren't supposed to move like this. But Victor's parents weren't normal. They put him through training that seemed insane for someone his size. Before school, he'd be doing flexibility training, stretching routines that would make a gymnast jealous. After school, more basketball work, but focused on guard skills, ball handling, shooting from way outside, footwork that emphasized grace and control rather than just power. And here's where the nerd part really kicks in. Victor wasn't just going through the motions. He was studying why these exercises worked. He would literally read books about anatomy and biomechanics to understand how muscles, tendons, and joints work together. He treated his own body like a machine he was trying to optimize. His parents taught him meditation and breathing work, not just for relaxation, but to improve focus and body awareness. They emphasized sleep, nutrition, and mental health at a time when most teenage athletes were just trying to look cool and dunk on people. Victor wasn't trying to be flashy, he was trying to be perfect. And those are two completely different motivations. While other prospects his age were posting on social media, chasing attention, going to parties, and building their brand, Victor was at home drawing, reading, learning languages, and studying the game like it was a university course. See, most elite basketball prospects have that alpha mentality. Loud, confident, always talking trash, always trying to prove they're the best. Victor was the opposite. He was quiet, thoughtful, introverted. He kept his circle incredibly small. He avoided drama. He didn't chase fame. But on the court, that's where the science experiment paid off, because what his parents created was something basketball had never seen before. A 7'4" player who moved like Kevin Durant, thought like a chess grandmaster, and approached the game with the discipline of a scientist conducting research. The first time most basketball fans saw Victor Wembanyama, they thought they were watching a glitch in the Matrix. His early viral clips weren't highlight reel dunks or flashy handles like most prospects. They were plays that seemed physically impossible. A blocked three-pointer from behind the shooter, not from the side, from directly behind, his arms reaching over like some kind of video game character with absurd wingspan. A chase-down block where he covered what looked like half the court in literally 3 strides. A step-back three where his release point was so high that the defender looked like a child trying to contest. The internet didn't know what to call him. The alien, the glitch, the 2K build in real life. These weren't just nicknames. They were attempts to describe something that didn't fit into normal basketball categories. Professional scouts started saying things they'd never said before. This wasn't, "he could be special," or "he has potential to be great." This was, "we've never seen anything like this in the history of basketball." And here's what made it even more surreal. Victor wasn't even in the NBA yet. He was playing in France, in a league most Americans had never watched, and he was already breaking the internet. But the most legendary moment, the one that changed everything, came during his games against Scoot Henderson and the G League Ignite team. These were supposed to be showcase games, exhibitions between top prospects. They became something else entirely. October 4th, 2022, Las Vegas. Victor Wembanyama versus Scoot Henderson, the 2 top prospects in the world going head-to-head in a 2-game showcase. The basketball world was watching. NBA front offices sent scouts. Media from around the globe showed up. This was supposed to be competitive. Game 1 starts, and within minutes, everyone in the building realizes they're watching something historic. Victor drops 37 points. Not grinding in the paint 37, he's hitting 7 three-pointers, pulling up from 30 feet like he's Steph Curry trapped in Shaq's body. He's blocking everything that comes near the rim. He's running the floor like a gazelle. He's executing footwork that big men aren't supposed to physically be able to do. And the way he moves, it's not normal. There's this fluidity, this grace, this understanding of space and timing that you usually only see in guards. He's doing KD fadeaways, Euro steps, behind-the-back dribbles in transition, and he's doing it all at 7'4". Game 2, he does it again. Different moves, same dominance, and it's not just the stats, it's how he plays. Calm, controlled, scientific, like he's running calculations in his head while everyone else is just reacting. After these games, LeBron James, the player Victor gets compared to most in terms of hype, says 5 words that cement Wembanyama's status. Everybody's been an alien. He's more like an alien. Think about that. LeBron James, one of the greatest players ever, someone who knows what generational talent looks like, is calling this kid something beyond normal greatness. The hype becomes inescapable. Every major sports media outlet is running stories. Social media explodes. NBA teams that aren't in playoff contention start openly tanking, trying to get the worst record possible just for a chance to draft him. Victor Wembanyama becomes the most anticipated NBA prospect since LeBron James in 2003. Maybe even more anticipated, because LeBron was an unprecedented athlete. But Victor is something basketball has literally never seen before. But here's what made Victor's journey so different from every other hyped prospect in recent memory. He didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be great. Look at the other top prospects from recent years. LaMelo Ball was flashy, came from a family that lived for attention, had reality shows and signature shoes before he even played professionally. Zion Williamson was a dunk contest in human form, breaking rims and going viral every single game. Scoot Henderson was a muscle-bound point guard who played with swagger and aggression. And then there's Victor, the 7'4" kid who posts calm photos on Instagram of him reading books, who talks about loving anime and fantasy novels in interviews, who draws in his free time, who takes his sleep schedule seriously, who meditates, who studies nutrition like it's a school subject. 0 scandals, 0 drama, 0 controversy. No parties that show up on TMZ. No attitude problems. No locker room issues. Just a quiet, thoughtful kid who treats basketball like a craft he's trying to master. His personality became part of the intrigue. In a sport where confidence and swagger are almost requirements for success, Here was someone who was humble, soft-spoken, and more interested in self-improvement than self-promotion. He gave thoughtful, intelligent interviews where he talked about the game with nuance and depth. He showed genuine curiosity about the history of basketball, about players who came before him, about what he could learn from different eras and different styles. And his social circle? Tiny. He kept the same close friends from childhood. He maintained relationships with his family. He didn't surround himself with an entourage or yes men. He built a life that emphasized stability and growth over excitement and attention. This wasn't an act. This wasn't a media training strategy. This was genuinely who Victor was. A nerd who happened to be 7'4" and better at basketball than anyone his age had ever been. The contrast with typical NBA prodigy behavior was so stark that it became its own story. Sports psychologists started writing articles about how his approach to mental health and personal development could change athlete culture. Coaches praised his maturity and his willingness to learn. Victor Wembanyama became famous without trying to be famous, and that might be the most remarkable part of his entire journey. Draft night 2023, the San Antonio Spurs select Victor Wembanyama with the first overall pick.
With the first pick in the 2023 NBA Draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Victor Wembanyama from Nanterre, France.
Shock to absolutely no one. He was the consensus number one from the moment the season ended. The only question was which team would be lucky enough to draft him. But here's what was different about Victor's entry into the NBA. The expectations weren't just, hopefully he'll be good, or maybe he'll be an all-star someday. The expectations were immediate MVP candidate, immediate Defensive Player of the Year candidate, future face of the league, potential greatest player of all time if everything goes right. These weren't hot takes from random fans. These were legitimate basketball minds. Former players, Hall of Famers, coaches, executives, saying that this kid could be the best player basketball has ever seen. That level of hype destroys most prospects. The pressure becomes too much. They crumble. They disappoint. They can't handle being the center of attention every single night. Victor? He thrived. His rookie season highlights look like they're from a video game. Blocks that shouldn't be possible. Threes from distances that 7-footers shouldn't shoot from. Passes that big men aren't supposed to make. Defensive plays where he's guarding on the perimeter one possession and protecting the rim the next. Every single night, he does something that breaks the internet. A chase-down block on a fast break. A step-back three over a defender who thought they had good contest. A full-court pass that leads to an easy bucket. Movement so fluid and graceful that it doesn't look real. And the stats? They're historic for a rookie, especially a rookie big man. Points, rebounds, blocks. But also the advanced numbers that show he's impacting the game in ways that go beyond the box score. His on-off numbers suggest the Spurs are dramatically better when he's on the floor. His defensive presence changes how teams approach offense entirely. But more than the numbers, more than the highlights, what stands out is how he carries himself. Still humble, still thoughtful, still treating every game like a learning experience rather than a coronation. He credits his teammates. He studies film obsessively. He asks questions of veterans. He stays late after practice working on details. He maintains the same routine that got him here. Sleep, nutrition, mental health, meditation, continuous learning. The hype was supposed to be impossible to live up to. Victor made it look easy, not because he's cocky or arrogant, but because he's prepared. Because he treats basketball like science. Because he's been training for this moment since he was a kid doing guard drills at 7 feet tall. So, if you had told that quiet kid in France, the one reading anatomy books and drawing anime characters, that he'd become the most hyped basketball prospect in 20 years, that he'd enter the NBA with MVP expectations, that he'd live up to hype that destroyed other players, he probably would have just smiled quietly and gone back to studying film. Because that's who Victor Wembanyama is. That's who he's always been. A nerd who turned his differences into advantages. While other prospects were chasing attention, he was chasing perfection. While others were building brands, he was building skills. While others were trying to be alpha, he was trying to be excellent. And that approach, that quiet, thoughtful, scientific approach to greatness, might be what changes basketball forever. The game has always celebrated flash and swagger. The trash talkers, the showmen. The guys who make basketball look easy because they're supremely confident. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those players are incredible, and they make the sport exciting. But Victor represents something different. He represents the idea that you can be soft-spoken and still be dominant, that you can be introverted and still be the center of attention, that you can be a nerd and still be the most terrifying matchup in professional basketball. His story proves that there's no one way to be great, that studying anatomy and doing meditation doesn't make you soft. It makes you prepared, that taking care of your mental health and maintaining close relationships doesn't make you weak. It makes you stable, that being different isn't a limitation. It's a superpower. A 7'4" kid who loved anime, art, science, stretching, and quiet nights at home. A kid who trained like a monk, not a showman. A kid who developed guard skills in a giant's body. A kid who treated basketball like a research project he was trying to perfect. That kid became the face of basketball's future. Not because he was the loudest or the flashiest or the most confident, but because he was the most prepared, the most thoughtful, the most willing to be different in a sport that often demands conformity. Victor Wembanyama's journey from quiet French suburb to NBA superstardom isn't just a basketball story. It's a reminder that being yourself, even when yourself is weird or nerdy or different from everyone else, can be your greatest strength.